Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of John Henry, who's here today, and Dave Beeston, it's our pleasure today to introduce you all to Kyle Dubas, the Penguins' president of hockey operations. Since we became stewards of the Penguins, we've only heard outstanding things about Kyle. As GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, he helped guide the Leafs as a perennial contender since he joined them in 2014. We've all met a number of outstanding men and women throughout our interview process, but the more we talked to Kyle, the more impressed we became by his philosophy, his integrity, by his plans for the Penguins, and by his leadership skills. John and I also want to thank Shannon, Kyle's wife, for supporting Kyle's decision. Jen Bolano is one of the outstanding tour guides of our community, and I hope she never leaves the organization, but she can become the president of the Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce after her tour for Kyle's family. Kyle's work starts today, but I again want to thank him for joining the Penguins organization and for his commitment to return our team to greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle.
Good afternoon, everybody, and very honored to be here today and join the Pittsburgh Penguins as the president of hockey operations for the club. I first want to take the opportunity to thank Tom, John, but in addition Sam Kennedy and Dave Beeston for the way that they handled the entire process. We heard from them basically the next morning after my time in Toronto came to a close and began a process whereby it was very clear to our entire family that their commitment to winning and delivering a great team every single season on and off the ice in Pittsburgh was paramount to them and to the entire Fenway Sports Group. When it comes to making us feel comfortable enough to make this move as a young family, all of the credit needs to go to Jen Bolano and Jason Seidling here with the Penguins. Last week they did an incredible job with my wife Shannon and our two kids Leo and Lennon, showing us around the city, making us feel comfortable in the city enough to the point where on early this week we made the decision that this was going to be the right move for us in the long term to make home and grow our family. Every single thing that I've heard about the city of Pittsburgh and the people in Pittsburgh has been proven very true by our experience here and getting to know the staff that we have and being able to tour the city in the way that we have. So there's a deep feeling of appreciation from our family to everybody that's made us feel very comfortable in this decision. Through the course of this process, I had the chance to speak with Coach Sullivan and Sidney Crosby. I thought that those were very important people for me to get a real deep sense of where they felt the organization was at and where it would be going, so that I knew coming in where they felt the Penguins were at and what they felt the Penguins would need for somebody in this role. Those conversations, a number of conversations with Coach Sullivan, but also the conversation with Sid were paramount in my decision to come here. They're some of the best competitors in hockey. Obviously, Mike Sullivan's record as a coach and Sidney's as a player speak for themselves, and that is one of the most exciting parts about coming here to Pittsburgh to work with the people that are up with me here, but also every single day on the hockey operations side. I see this task ahead of us as a two-pronged effort. In the short run, it's continuing to make decisions that are going to allow the team to be competitive while the core group of players that have led the team here to championships in the past continue to perform at the levels that they have for as long as they can and make decisions that will support them in the lineup every night, that will allow the team to continue to contend each season while those players are with us. At the same time, the work will also begin at delivering a long-term hockey organization that can be the class of the NHL, and to reduce any gap in time that there otherwise would be from the end of those great players' careers to the next era of great hockey for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's our intention, and that's the work that we'll get started on as soon as we wrap up here. And we're very, very honored to be here and join the city of Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Penguins. At this point, I'll turn it over to any questions that anyone may have.
First question, Rob Rossi on the left. Hey, Kyle, welcome to Pittsburgh. Hi, Tom and Dave. Will there be a general manager, and what are you looking for in that candidate, and what type of time frame do you want?
Thanks for the question, Rob. I think that the way that I'll handle that is, just in meeting with John, Tom, Dave, and Sam, it was very clear that the amount of work that they've done and how thorough they were in the search, it was fairly impressive to me, and they've met with a lot of people. I think that is also, with it being June 1st, it might be a little difficult to gain further permissions to meet with some of those candidates regarding a general manager position. So my intention is that I'll handle that on an interim basis here through to July, and then begin to go through candidates and make the decision that's best for the hockey department. If we do go down that path, I think the type of person we'll be looking for is someone progressive that can really add an element to the organization that perhaps I don't have as a skill set in some regard.
For Kyle, do you think the Penguins' window to win a championship is still open, and maybe what areas need to be improved upon to make that happen?
Sure. The way that I looked at this and going through this decision, Taylor, from my end, was that I heard and talking to people who once it kind of started to circulate that this was a position that we were considering after things wrapped in Toronto, I heard a lot of people that were highly skeptical of the team's ability to contend here. And the way I view it is that if people want contending to win a championship, I do think that we need to build out the depth of the group and supplement the greatness that those people bring each day. I think there are some of those pieces that are already here, but in the next several weeks we'll get to work on more of that at the same time, really having a huge amount of focus on the long term as well.
Kyle, for you, as far as your conversations with Crosby, you mentioned that twice in your opening comments. What did you need or want to hear from him before accepting this job about what you referenced at the end, the eventual gap between when some of these great players do retire and what the future holds?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. What I wanted to be able to have a discussion with Sidney about was where he felt the team was at, but more than anything to be able to sit with him and ensure that he still that winning was the number one thing for him, and it was very evident in talking to him that winning is his major focus every day. And I think that when you have people like that are constructed in such a way that winning and the competitiveness that takes and the desire that takes to execute each day enters into the building, I think that can reduce the gap between the end of those players' careers and the next era of great hockey here, because that lifts the whole group and that lifts the whole standard. So if we can do good work on the long-term building while those players and the coaching staff are still, like Sully can coach forever. I mean, he's a great coach, so there's no real expiration date on Mike. On the players, I think everyone looks at it and says their age is what it is. So how much longer does the group here have? And when I talked to Sidney Crosby, it was very clear that his only intention and desire is to win. And that's what I wanted to hear, because I think that can have a massive impact on raising the level of the players that come in behind as prospects or younger players that we're able to acquire here in the next stretch. And that character of him, his character, and that of the group can reduce the amount of time that you're alluding to in the gap between what's now and what's next.
So you didn't even hear from him I'm going to sign another contract after this one expires. You didn't need that answer.
I didn't ask that, no. And no, so he's got two more years. Yeah, so he's got 2 more years left, and we'll address that when we can. That's not till next. We got 13 months. So yeah.
Here, Kyle. Welcome to Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
You have a draft coming up in 4 weeks,
Right.
and free agency a couple days after that.
Right.
Obviously, you can't be that familiar with Pittsburgh's personnel and organization. Who will you rely on to give you input, on which players should be retained, what you need in free agency, what draft prospects look like, that sort of thing?
Sure. Thanks, Dave. I try, and I think it's the responsibility in this job, and especially because Pittsburgh was a conference rival in my prior post, I try to stay as up to date both at the NHL level and the AHL level with every team. So I have my feelings on the group that's here. I have my feelings on the free agent class. But when it comes to who I will rely on here, I'll obviously rely heavily on the coaching staffs at both levels, at the NHL and the American League level, for their insights on the group. And then just in going through this process the last few weeks, it's been clear to me that there's a very good group of people here in the background that people speak very highly of. And then as I've begun to see their work in the last few days, I think it'll be very helpful for me in going through and informing that. As it pertains to the draft, I think last week the amateur scouts were here and preparing for that. And it is a draft that I do have a fairly decent knowledge on, and we'll use the next 4 weeks to focus on the draft and free agency to make sure that we're armed with the information that we need to make the best decisions. But in terms of who we'll rely on every facet of the organization that's in place, as well as perhaps elevating some other parts of the organization and the input that they can provide.
Hi, Kyle. You have a reputation for being an analytics guy. How much does Kyle Dubas really, as an executive, have to do with analytics? How much is not involved with analytics, just philosophically? And when you look at this organization, do you think some changes need to be made in that department and maybe some additions?
Well, what I would say is I grew up, for one, in the locker room in Sault Ste. Marie, and then in scouting, and then in player development. And what I came to, I know that that's the reputation, but what I came to deeply appreciate was that the data and objective information can provide you with a lot of detail and a lot of great insights that you can use to make better decisions. And so I just met the staff here very briefly on my walk over to this. So I don't know the exact extent of the work that they're doing. They all have great reputations, and if they need more staff added that add different elements, that's the route that we'll go down, and those have been the discussions with Tom and John, Dave and Sam about what the ownership group and what the management group at Fenway Sports is willing to do here to help the organization. So it'd probably be presumptuous of me to say exactly what we need. I know what we had in Toronto. I think the key on it, Josh, is the integration of all of the departments. So I think that data and analytics can help to serve player personnel, player development, high performance, in addition to systems and tactics and whatever Sully and the coaching staff need. So I think it'll be trying to integrate them all. When in Toronto at the start, it was tough. There was the walls or silos between. I don't know exactly what exists here because this is my first 15 minutes on the job. But once we get through that, the goal that we'll be looking for is to have a deeply collaborative group that works together and serves to work together. And that's what we'll try to expedite here as quickly as possible.
Hey, Kyle. I wanted to ask you about the few years you spent as the GM of the Sioux Greyhounds. What did that experience mean to you on a personal level, given your ties there? And how did those few years shape who you are today as an executive and as a person as well?
My time, I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, and growing up in Sault Ste. Marie, that was really my dream job. It was I didn't look at it and say I want to be an NHL general manager, president of hockey operations. When I was growing up, I wanted to be the general manager of the Sioux Greyhounds, probably the way someone who grows up in Pittsburgh feels about the Pirates, Steelers, or Penguins. And that was my dream job, and so to be able to do it, I think I'll always look back and reflect so fondly on that. Really, I grew up in the organization. I started working there when I was 11 years old. They offered me a scouting position when I was 17. Dave Torrey, who was the general manager at the time, and then gave me the general manager position at 25. I made a lot of mistakes every step of the way, and what it really taught me was how to handle the pressures of the job. I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, so every single place you go there, the team is everything in the city. So the media scrutiny and pressure was high, and the criticism was a lot, especially the first season. And so it taught me how to deal with that, which I think served me well in my prior post. And it really formed everything of how I feel about hockey and what I think about hockey, and you're continuing to always change that, but also in leadership and leading a group of people, how collaborative you want to be, how you want to treat everybody, and so on and so forth. So I could talk about Sault Ste. Marie and the Greyhounds forever, but it means, when looking back on it, it's tough to put into words exactly how much it means, other than it probably means everything to me getting started on this path.
Kyle, how hard will it be to affect real change with this roster, given the age and the amount of no movement clauses? I believe there's 8.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. I think that those are obviously very real situations. Everyone knows that they exist. To me, the effect on it, surrounding, whether it's surrounding the no movement clauses or the core that's here, is what we can add in terms of depth pieces, what we can add in terms of younger players, whether it's by trade or free agent acquisition. Mark, that'll be the real key that we'll set our focus on, and then in the next several weeks here, we'll begin to get a temperature for what the value is of all of the players in the market, and try to move this roster back to a point where I think the major focus is, number one, is inside of our division. That's the way that I always look at things, is, rather than try to stack ourselves up against all 31 other teams, is let's focus on our division, and let's focus on trying to win our division. We play the most games there. That's what's going to set our playoff seeding. We've got to be inside the top 3 to lock ourselves in, and our goal is going to be to win the division. So for me, it's going to be a hard look. Obviously, in goal, there's big decisions that need to be made. On defense, and both at the top of the defense group and on depth, there's big decisions to be made up front. There's less big decisions to be made, but there's more of what you speak of in terms of the number of commitments there. So it's going to be taking this next several weeks to sort through that. I think I don't know what the schedule is for, I'll do what Jen tells me in terms of media commitments, but by the time we have our next session, whether that's at the draft or prior, I'll probably have a much more clear and definitive answer for you, rather than just high-level stuff like today.
Kyle, you just touched on it a little bit, and you did just get here, but there might be an important decision to be made when it comes to goalie and Tristan Jarry. Sure. Just how do you evaluate that position as you currently stands, and how much do you prioritize Tristan Jarry this offseason?
Sure, I could tell you exactly what we'll do here is, having not been with Tristan every day, I'll rely on Andy Chiodo, who's the goaltending coach, and Mike in terms of what he's all about as a person. I'll probably try to take the chance to meet him myself and get to know him. It's a big decision for the club, and then it's going to be doing a very thorough evaluation of Tristan, where he stands in the marketplace. Get a real scope of who's going to be available, whether that's in free agency or trade, and then if Tristan is at the top of that mix, or in that mix because he's familiar and you know him, it'll be to try to establish a concept that can get done with he and his agent. But that's a big priority, because goaltending is vitally important, as you see. It's also difficult to project and predict, and there's a lot of variance year to year in terms of performance, but that's the method that we'll take here, and really in the next 48 hours, 72 hours.
Kyle, welcome.
The way that we viewed it was when we came to the last day there, so Friday the 19th, or I think that's the date, and I have in my head. When we got home the next day, you get inundated with calls, texts, people want to come over to the house. It's nice, but it's also sad. And then the way that we viewed the next day was very early the next morning. I was on the phone with one of our staff there, and I had a 617 area code call, and I hung up, and it was a message from Sam, who told me that they had permission from Toronto, and my initial inkling was, we need to take a breath here before we entertain other options, because that was our intention at the beginning of the week. And my wife then, later in the day said, I actually think you should go and at least meet with them, because, she said if they're great people and they have a long-term view of the organization, it's going to be a great fit for you in terms of what everybody is about, that you're going to work for and work with, and the staff has a great feel, then we're going to be moving anyway now. So our kids are going to be 6 and 2, Leo will be in grade 1 next year. Shannon's view was, if we're going to move, we may as well move now before the kids are too entrenched. And so that was the first step. I had a very long meeting with Tom, John, Dave, and Sam at John's home on the Sunday. which was, it was, to say it from my view, was just a remarkable meeting in terms of hearing the way that they view a sports organization, the way that they want to build things out, the short-term competitiveness, but the long-range capacity to build this, an organization that can sustain success. So we went through it. And then really the closer came in on Saturday, Sunday with Jen and Jason, with our family coming down, and they really felt extraordinarily comfortable here. And it's not the other part of so.
Congratulations, Kyle. You mentioned supplementing this core with depth and bringing in better pieces there. Is there a specific archetype or player style that you'll be looking for, whether it be players who are more possession-based or whether they maybe play a little bit more of a grittier or grindier style of a game?
Sure. Sully and I have had a very brief discussion on this. I think obviously the top end of the forward group I think is very, very good. I think you look throughout the league, and to have that group that's there and whatever formation you want to place it on that night is going to be good. You have Jake Gensel and Crosby on one. You've got Malkin centering another. Wherever you want to put the other pieces around, you're going to have a good group there. Do we need another piece at that level to really put us over the top? And what's that going to, the team does have a very good opportunity with the salary cap this summer as well. And there's about $20 million in space. So do we need a spot, do we need a piece there to supplement? Then it's what types of players do we want in the bottom half of our lineup, to me, that can deliver the game back to those top players in a good spot. So they're not hemmed in their own zone, but they have utility, whether it's penalty kill, being able to drive the puck down the ice. In the end, I think there's a deep alignment, which is another reason why I'm here today, and the fact that those players are going to have to be super, super competitive, but they're also going to have to be good. And so being able to find those types of players is going to be very important over this next stretch. Examining what we have here on a deeper basis. I think it was Dave that asked about my familiarity with the organization. Of course, the top players, but it's really getting the read and digging in more on film on the players that have performed at call it the bottom six, if you will. And then on defense, it's going to be going through and determining what exactly we need, or what are some of the younger guys that played a little bit more last year, what they're capable of and stepping up, and decisions there as well. But that's how I see it in the next several weeks.
Tom and Dave, a question for each of you too. Looking at this search, nearly 2 month long, was there anything, how do you evaluate the process, the search to find Kyle, and this process? Was there anything that surprised you or anything unexpected throughout this?
Dave, you want to answer?
Sure. Well, I think the process was a massive success because we're sitting here right now with Kyle. So we were really happy. We ran a robust search, as everyone was aware of. We took our time because I think we said last time I was up here with you guys that we wanted to get it right, not do it quickly. And so I think we're really, really happy with the way it ended up.
For Dave, or I guess Tom, you could chime in too, but I think Dave. Having gone through this process now and having been owners for 20 months or whatever it is, what do you view the brand of the Pittsburgh Penguins to be? How does Kyle tie into that? And why a president, because it originally was going to be a hockey leadership search. Why specifically this role?
Well, first of all, we're very proud of the history of the Penguins as hockey fans. We know the legacy that we've inherited, and it's our goal to, as I said in the beginning, to return to not just being a contender, but to win a Stanley Cup. Our philosophy is really one of giving Kyle and his associates the best possible resources to win. And Kyle's been very articulate today about his path to success. We've acknowledged it's a balance between success this year and long-term success, and we're very confident that Kyle will execute the plan that he articulated to us.